welcome back to BrownCast Ultra. It's been a long time coming. We are here in episode 35. We are going to talk about some Game of Thrones shit.
Yes.
Yeah. After a long-awaited return, I'm sure, very long-awaited. We thought a good jumping-off episode would be to discuss something current, and what is more current and more relevant and important than this newest episode of Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
Well, so for those who are uninitiated, I am Alec Brown. With me is
Kyle Brown
and
David Grayson.
And so we, like Kyle said, we are going to be talking about the newest season of Game of Thrones for a little bit, and then we are going to spin that off into just talking about Game of Thrones and really why it is such a good show and why people are so drawn to it. So for those who have not watched Game of Thrones, we are going to be talking spoilers here. We're going to try and avoid as many as possible. But if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, at least up till season 5, then you just need to go watch that, because otherwise none of this is going to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, like, why did you even click on an episode called Game of Thrones if you haven't even seen it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, like, why you should watch Game of Thrones, we can probably sum it up within, like, the next 60 seconds. It's really good.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic, and you're going to love the characters.
There are boobs in it.
There's lots of boobs in it.
So many boobs. Lots of cocks, too, for the
uninitiated.
The ladies.
Just keep saying initiated.
Uninitiated.
Well, so without further ado, we're going to jump right into talking a little bit about Season 6. Now, as of recording, it's not over, so we're only going to be able to talk about what we've seen so far.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess maybe something I have liked about this new season, stuff. Jon Snow coming back. No, I'm kidding.
He's dead.
I will admit this
trick.
last season maybe has had something is kind of a double-edged sword. It's good and kind of bad. They are kind of things happen a little bit more like you would expect them to, as opposed to a lot of the show where it's based off of lots of unexpected things, like the killing off of main characters like Ned Stark and Robb Stark. But so far in this season, Jon Snow came back like we kind of expected.
It's much more predictable. I would agree with that.
Yeah, Dany kind of takes over the Dothraki.
She was predictable from the start.
Yeah,
though.
that was always pretty predictable. I would say Ramsay killing his father is somewhat predictable.
Yeah, there was a lot of tension there.
Yeah,
that would be like the same.
One of them was going to not make it through.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to, Jon Snow. Sorry, impressions are gonna happen in this episode.
Oh yeah, impressions are encouraged.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking
that was the impression of the weird guy.
And now here's Littlefinger.
Yeah, now here's Littlefinger.
Have I ever told you the story of how I was caught?
No.
Oh, well, I was an asshole. I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, that's kind of funny, because in this last episode, like, the woman goes, "Have you ever heard the story of how you were cut?" He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like,
before he got a chance to say it.
I gotta say,
he's
the biggest WTF look I've ever seen. You've seen out of various this whole season.
I can describe it. I can describe it in one noise.
What was going through his head was, wait a minute, I'm supposed to tell this story.
I could describe it in one sound.
Like,
you almost
feel like he's like, oh man, I should stop telling people this story. It's just horrible to listen to. Like,
have I been? Is this how I'm coming across?
Is this how I sound? Is this how I sound? Oh man,
I'm surprised Tyrion went anywhere with me.
I'm going back to Essos.
Let alone across the ocean in a box.
The box. So, What did you guys think of Jon Snow's resurrection?
Well, you must be naked.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to go with first. Like, thank God he doesn't have to wear pants being resurrected.
You know, he's the only one, too. The only person that's been resurrected in the whole show that had to be naked.
It was literally...
It's kind of messed up.
How come all his rituals involving him, or really anybody who's attractive on the show, they have to sexy them up in the ritual? It's like, this ritual requires me to bathe them in hot oil.
Yeah,
You're like, and jerk them off. You're like, why?
This ritual requires me to come out of fire without clothes on.
Yeah, it's always, let's get dolled up.
I think it's mostly because they can get away with it.
Yeah, there's no other reason. There probably isn't.
Like, I mean, I've always kind of felt like, and you see this in a lot of HBO shows where it's like, the nudity, it's kind of like, in the sex, it's like, this is like our thing, like as an HBO show, because we can do this. And so all HBO shows seem to have like this like minimum requisite amount of like nudity and sex, but in this they can get away with that because it's fantasy. And it's like, oh, for this magic, things need to be sexy and bloody, you know? And because
sexy
it's like,
and bloody.
Oh, you know, and that kind of fits along like the bunch of like.
Sounds like my old girlfriend, huh?
It's like Harry Potter takes a far more adult turn. Look, for this magic to work, everything needs to be sexy and bloody.
And it's got to be in the Chamber of Secrets. Or you're going to go to the prison of Azkaban.
Azkaban?
Isn't
Azkaban?
It's
Azkaban.
Azkaban.
Yeah, that's what I was going with, Azkaban.
I think that's a
Azkaban.
porno movie.
It should be if it's not.
Loosely based on
Peter,
novels by J.K. Rowling.
Peter North parts his hair and puts on a nice pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And just goes, have you ever seen a load this big, Hermione? Anyways, Game of Thrones.
That. So,
You
to
wanted
answer
that.
Kyle's question, with Jon Snow coming back to life, was the most predictable thing this season. I'm sorry. Like, this was... It was obvious this was going to happen. There's no way anyone's killing off Jon Snow. If they had killed off Jon Snow, it would have been the biggest thing ever, but I was almost 100% certain this was not going to happen.
I agree, and to springboard off that, not to tangent too much, but it's the same thing with... You see these things in the news, like... Guess what, everybody? Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead says that Rick Grimes will die at some point. It's like, they all fucking will.
Yeah.
That's like him saying they're all going to encounter zombies at some point.
It's like,
that's part of the show.
Yeah. Hey, guys, in this season, winter's coming.
That's pretty much...
Yeah,
I thought winter was coming like 4 seasons ago.
But
now it's getting here.
It makes me a little bit thankful that they didn't drag out Jon Snow's resurrection.
Yeah,
because I kind of expected it to be like this multi-episode thing, and they're just dragging, even though we all know it's coming. Which really,
I will say this: they sort of did. I mean, they didn't drag it out for the entire season. I'll say that.
Yeah,
that's good, because some shows have been known to stretch something small for an entire season, and you're really spreading it thin.
Arrow.
Yeah, but I don't watch the show. But so, I don't like things spread thin. I don't know. Like, they did it for what? It took 3 episodes, I think.
I believe 2. No, 2.
It happened at the end.
It happened on the third.
It happened at the end of the 2nd episode.
The problem was
that
they would, like, I think the reason why it felt like it was a little annoying, because they waste times like gross old lady Melisandre scene where it's like 1,000 years long at the end of the first episode, and it's like, look at this naked old lady. And it's like, can we bring John back? Like, I don't care if she's actually an old lady. Like, that was not a big deal for me. Like,
look at this naked old lady.
That's exactly what the shot is. It's like, y'all like boobs, huh? Well, time for you to reap what you sow.
Because we show all boobs in this show.
And it's just slow pan out. And it's like, we don't even get shots of, like, Daenerys that long.
I mean, that's not an accident.
Listen,
I heard it was quite quite a task to get her to be naked again on the show. And part of this is because
wait, who
season,
Daenerys or Melisandre?
Daenerys,
okay.
not Melisandre.
Okay, because she seems to enjoy it.
She's naked in like everything. You ever like Google her? Like she's naked in like everything she's done. But
wonder how she got her job.
Yes, but Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys, is very much against it since like the second season because I mean in that first season they make her naked like every fucking episode. Like it's pretty harsh. And then in the last season, Lena Headey, for her big naked scene, had a body double.
Yeah.
And so Emilia Clarke is, okay, how come she gets the body double and I don't get the body double?
Because she's tatted up. Like,
that's
Lena
true,
Headey is covered from head to toe in tats. She's like Angelina Jolie level of tattoos.
Ooh.
And because Angelina Jolie is a little bit different, she's like, nobody's got as good of an ass as me, and everyone's like, you're right. And, but so they get this spray paint. Like in the movie Wanted, she has this thing where she lets her robe down. They have this spray paint that blends into your natural skin tone and covers up the tats in such a brief scene.
Do they do that with The Rock as well?
Yeah, they cover his arm.
Yeah.
Well, they also tried to, in his movies, sometimes they even try to justify why he does it. They just go, what does that tattoo mean? It's like, shut the fuck up. Can you just save San Andreas or whatever the fuck you're doing?
Can you stop talking about my tats, bro? We're saving San Andreas.
Quit talking about my tats, or I'm gonna take you from the top rope. Sorry, I don't know why he became Ventura. I've been watching way too many Jesse Ventura clips. What if I told you that the Night's Watch was completely based on magic, huh? Listen, I've read the parchment. I've seen the ravens.
I've got the maps.
If you did... Yeah, I've got the maps to Westeros, and you know what? I'm going all the way to Essos, and I'm gonna find Daenerys, and I'm gonna slam her on the Drogon's back.
All right.
I'm gonna take Daenerys.
That was actually a nice segue to Euron Greyjoy showing up in the show this season.
Okay.
Who also wants to go to Essos.
Oh, okay.
And slam Daenerys.
Slam Daenerys, preferably on the back of a dragon.
With my big fat cock.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say this because I do have a fairly strong opinion about this. He is wasted in this show. He's wasted. This annoys David especially to all hell when I use the phrase "in the book." But in the book, he has a far better introduction and way more presence and intrigue to his character. Because for those who don't know, in the book he's more portrayed as this kind of like evil Jack Sparrow kind of dude.
He's supposed to be like really flamboyant and like over the top.
He's very like flamboyant over top, but he's also
make me 1,000 ships.
He does kind of like he does. It's more like make me 1,000 ships, love, or something like that. Like can you imagine like doing this? Like you kind of imagine him like
But the thing is, it's like his Kyle's Johnny Depping over there.
I wish we were taping it. Gosh.
But it's just one of those things in the book. He is built up a little bit more, and they kind of just flat out say the fucker is evil and weird. So when he shows up acting all weird and flamboyant and wins the Iron Throne or the
Seastone chair.
Yeah, the Seastone chair. You're like, oh shit, stuff's about to happen.
All right, now for me, since I should preface this entire podcast that I have not read the books. Now I have watched a lot of like theory videos that explain the books, like Alt Shift X and things that we like, but I have not read them. So if I seem stupid, it's not because I'm trying to dumb myself down. I legitimately don't know.
I have read the books, but I don't like to reference them all the time in the show.
Yeah, and I'm going to try a lot not to in this.
Well, and I'll say for this context, I think it's appropriate because, like I said, if you tell me, there might be somebody out there who also just enjoys watching the show and doesn't want to read the books or hasn't read them yet.
Oh yeah, lots of shit. Lots of people.
Lots of shit.
Lots of shit. But the books in the show are almost completely different at this point. So,
which we'll get into.
But you're not wrong in that Euron is maybe a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
At considering, even within just the context of the show, what he's actually doing. Like, taking control of the Iron Island, sending them after Daenerys, which is kind of like... is kind of out of left field, right? Because the Ironborn and Daenerys seem so far away. You wouldn't think when when he becomes like king of the Iron Islands, you expect him to be like, and we're gonna attack King's Landing on the Morn. And,
it's too much too quick because they introduce him and he's like, I heard you lost your mind in the storm, and he just goes, I did. I was the storm. I am the storm. Look at how stationary my feet are on this rickety bridge.
Well, it's also, he comes in, there was a comic that did this, so I can't claim full thing, but he almost comes up in this very, Donald Trump manner of, I am the storm, storms love me. He does. He's just
this is my real hair.
Look, this girl, she's stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm your guy.
So you're saying, what is it, Asha?
Yeah.
All right, Asha or Yara, whichever one.
She's Asha in the book, Yara in the show.
Okay, Yara. So, I guess she's his Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
I've only said that shit about Rosie O'Donnell. So,
but
it's too quick because he goes I thought you lost your mind in the storm, and then he's like, yeah, I did, but I'm back, and I don't know why I look 50 years younger than you, but I do, and then he just over the bridge you go.
Yeah,
and he just throws him down. Now, here's the thing. If they wanted to make that a little bit more interesting, I know it might sound cheesy, but I'd be okay with this kind of level of cheesiness. Where if Yara had maybe talked to him and goes, you need to, forgive Theon, he's your son, go and do that. And as he was going to do that, he gets met on the bridge.
Yeah.
And then gets thrown off, because then you're you actually feel something, because at first it was just funny to watch him get thrown off.
Oh, that's a very, I think that fits along the lines of a lot of stuff that happens in Game of Thrones where you think things are going to be happy, and then they're reality fucks them up. Kind of in the beginning of the show where they're oh, Ned, we should send Ned to the wall. And you're that's not so bad. They need Ned at the wall. Jon Snow and Ned need some father-son bonding time. It's this could be kind of cool.
Well, also we thought we were going to hear about Lyanna.
Yeah. He's he'll tell Jon. He's the
next time I see you,
I'll tell you. Yeah, you think all this stuff is going to happen, and then you're just he's beheaded, and it's okay, none of that stuff is gonna happen. You gotta get your hopes up real quick just for the George R.R. Martin reality to kick you in the ass. So yeah, something like Balon going to reconcile with Theon, and then just being cut it short by this asshole.
Yeah, because
that's such a Game of Thrones thing to happen.
Because it's a twist that would give enough. Not catharsis, that's not the right word, but enough compassion for him, kind of going look, we get that this guy, it's hard for this guy to swallow his pride like this.
Yeah.
And he's doing it, and he's about to go and try to apologize as best as he can, I guess.
Yeah, but it's he realizes his son got all fucked up because of him. So he's well, my son lost everything, so I might as well, at least try and, bring him back into the fold.
How's it going, sport?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I missed your baseball game.
I believe I knew your mother, son. My God, it's like I'm looking in a mirror.
I'm sorry I missed your castle sacking. Hey,
hey,
kid.
Here would have been great. What do you
say? Let's go get some milkshakes. Thanks, Dad. And then they sail off to get milkshakes.
No, it would have been great if he comes back. How was your trip?
Pretty good.
Was it pretty good?
You look well. You look good.
Lost some weight.
It's oh man, what is your diet plan?
He's gay. His father's now gay since he came back. Oh my God, what is your diet plan? Have you seen Euron's mutton chops? Hello.
It's my diet plan is getting my cock chopped off.
I lost 8 ounces.
Theo looks to him and goes, would you like me to tell you the story of how I got cut?
See, I am telling you, I am waiting for a scene with Varys, Theon, and Grey Worm in the same room. Because I have a feeling they're going to do it.
They're going to have a support group.
Now,
Cockslit is synonymous.
This is so random. I know this is so random, and we'll get back on track. But do you think some way or another, through maybe magic or I don't know, that Theon or Varys will get their cocks back.
No.
I mean, we brought Jon Snow back at this point, so maybe they just need to be naked.
Well, because people keep saying as a possible hypothesis, the reason that Varys has remained in power is because he might be a Targaryen who shaved his head.
Oh, yeah.
And if he got his cock back, then he actually could ascend to the throne.
Yeah.
Because
What?
they even talk about in season 1, he just goes like Littlefinger's like, or no, Oberyn goes, so what do you desire?
Oh,
Lord-
yeah, it's like
Lord
he
Varys?
says, like, it leaves me time
And it-
for other things.
Yeah. You know, when I discovered what passion and desires did to people, I was happy to have no part in it.
Yeah,
and then
here's-
looks at the throne like, can't wait to fuck that throne.
Yeah, exactly. That is a huge, like, foreshadowing that they never really deliver on in any way.
Well, maybe they intend to, and they're like, you know what? That alone is going to keep this show going for 2
What
more
if
years.
Varys? Here's a better thought. What if Varys isn't a eunuch and he's been fucking with everyone?
See, I've been wondering that shit, but somebody would have had to have seen, surely, right? Like, who would say that? And also, why would he seem so upset when she's like, but don't you remember when you, when
That's true.
when I
She
was
does
the...
pretty much confirm that it actually happened.
They haven't. And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah.
I know.
See, here's the thing. You know what about that, by the way, with the new Red Priestess, what's her name? Do we know her name?
Who cares?
I can't remember.
Don't
her
care
name.
either.
She does have a name.
Yeah, but we'll figure it out. At some point we'll look it up. But I have a feeling that because, you know, like, you see Melisandre, you know, she has the glamour thing that makes her old. And so it's feasible that she's been alive for a couple hundred years at least.
Yeah.
That if this Red Priestess is also that old, then she might have been the voice, I feel, that responded in the flames, like during his sorcerer thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when the sorcerer cut off his dick or whatever, he summoned like a Red Priestess's black magic.
He called collect.
He called, dial up, and threw a cock on the fire, you know, as you do.
2 quarters or a cock.
Shave and a haircut, no cock. Sorry.
I guess it hasn't really helped that they haven't. There hasn't been another scene where like the people are like Melisandre or somebody's looking into the flames and like a voice like comes back.
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's the thing that people keep speculating. And this is just for me, keep in mind, this is just for me as a show watcher, not a book reader.
Yeah.
That, not Beric Dondarrion, but Thoros of Myr,
Yeah.
said he lost his faith. I was never a good priest, and I lost my faith, and I lost my way, and I fucked every whore or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, when he was at his all-time lowest, he prayed to the god, and it finally answered. And then Melisandre, you know, goes just like, everything I've said is a lie. And then Davos is like, have you ever tried to raise someone from the dead? And then she just goes, no, I've never tried. I don't know why she's John Lennon. But just, no, I've never tried. And so she goes in there and she's like, it's not going to work. I've lost my faith. And then boom, he resurrects. So I have a feeling that that's like the recurring theme. It's like for some reason this red god or whatever that they pray to, this magic, will only work
When you're sad.
when you're emotionally bankrupt.
So here's an interesting question. Do you think that the Red God has much to do with like the blood magic that Melisandre does? Like, you know, the shadow like stuff, like with Stannis, like to kill Renly.
Well, you know,
and, like,
here's an
various
interesting
stuff like that, or is it just like unrelated magic that she's?
Well, here's a thought. This is something I've heard a little bit about online, and I've kind of compiled it. You know, they say there's power in king's blood.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is there's probably not power in king's blood. What there is power in is the blood of old Valyria. Oh, so that's one. And the Valyrians are the ones who originally tamed dragons. Obviously, they're magical folks. They have some ability to be able to withstand enough to be able to be around dragons, and dragons trust them. Mm-hmm. So that's the second. The third, the people who we've always been seeing them use blood from are people whose families descend from old Valyria.
Yeah,
like the Baratheons.
That's true, yeah.
And so I think the important thing is, to answer your question, I don't think the magic has anything to do with the Red God. I think the whole point is the people who have blood of old Valyria are magic people. Like, they are maybe the first human beings to ever walk the earth or something. But either way, they're the people with magic.
They got blood goes back to that of the first one.
Yeah, and so they're the people that actually have magic, and so all of this blood magic stuff only works with their blood.
But I think it's that
because that's also where the faith of the Lord of Light comes from
Valyria. Yeah, I get that, but they really rarely talk about Valyria in the show, or the Valyrians, or or the fact that many of the noble houses are descended from Valyrians.
But I'll say
really
this:
just
Daenerys, Daenerys
over and over
does
and
it again,
right?
And Tyrion has a lot of knowledge of old Valyria, and even he just goes like,
Oh, you're right. I could totally see like a scene in which Tyrion like explains all this.
Well, by the way, holy crap, we have to address this. Is that scene where Tyrion is petting a dragon for the first time is probably the saddest I ever was and happiest I ever was at the same time while watching the show, because it doesn't even have to be a big dragon. It could be little like me. And then he goes, and he told me they died thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, and I cried myself to sleep. And he's like, and then here you are. I mean, I was so, I was getting choked up watching it.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's such a good scene. So well acted. Because there's
He's a
nothing
good actor,
there.
yeah.
There is a ball
true,
there.
yeah.
And he's just going,
You're petting the ball. You're petting the ball.
Come on. Sorry, that's such a weird laugh. But all right, now Peter, you're that dragon's loving it. It's loving that pet.
If you've ever seen the behind the scenes, whenever they have the dragons, for their heads, they actually have it on a stick, and it looks like a sock puppet that has been stuffed full of other socks in this kind of shape of a dragon head, and it's on this big long stick. So it's like, all right, you're petting the dragon, and they're like waving it up and down. You're petting the dragon. Oh, the dragon's looking at you. Yeah, a little scared.
Whoa, there he is.
Now you're petting the dragon again.
Now, I will say this, that we were supposed to also get to... I know I distracted us, and I'll take full responsibility for all the tangents. But we were going to talk about...
why the show is so good?
Why it's so good, but also what character stories work, and stuff like that. So, Al, do you want to lead off with that? Why do you think the show's so good?
Why do I think it's so good? I think in an introduction statement, I think the reasons why this show has drawn people in the way it has, and I say this because I am a person, Kyle knows this, I love the schlocky fantasy stuff we saw in the 80s, like your Conans and stuff.
I mean, World of Warcraft comes out this weekend, so it's not really. It's not really.
I love
it's not gone. Thing. It's ever there.
Hey, let's all give credit to you using the word schlocky.
Yeah.
But so.
Good job, Alan.
Thank you. So the thing is, the things that make this series really work for people and makes it really endearing, and what other fantasy stuff. They've never had all of it. They've only had one of the things. It even includes some of the more modern fantasy stuff that all failed. Number one would be an extremely cohesive world and world building. When you look at Game of Thrones, they went to castles to film. All the clothing and, all the set dressing and costumes and props are all so detailed and done so well. And, for HBO, this is hugely ambitious because this is all extremely difficult. It's all pretty well researched as far as, what it looks like and what they wear and all this kind of stuff. So that really pulls you into this world really well, And it doesn't look cheap and it doesn't look lazy, which a lot of fantasy stuff does. They'll always cheat somewhere. Or they'll put everything in a field, This is a common one you always see. When they're in the town of normal people, it's always tight shots, You can't see anything out there because otherwise you'd see like the road people are driving on behind the set. But Game of Thrones,
the White Castle in North Ireland.
So, like, they really work hard on that. The second thing I think really makes it work is a lot of faith as far as the writing and adapting with the show creators and the writing and a lot of the direction is all what I mean. Even with this season, that's kind of gone off a little bit off the rails from what the book usually does. They're still real. They still hold the source material in high esteem, and they've taken a lot of like advice from George R.R. Martin.
You're talking about Dan and David, the two, the showrunners.
But I'm also like the writing teams and stuff. They've all the whole like production team has like been very invested in this project, and it's paid off in dividends because all this writing is really compelling, and this is the storytelling is all really good, even though it's all like lots of murder, sex, death, and stuff, which some people would just not really fall into because HBO's done shows like that before with lots of like betrayals and violence and death, and they just never picked up like Game of Thrones did.
Yeah.
And then the last one I would say is really good casting. Like they've had exceptional casting and went out of their way to find people that just like really fit into these roles.
As long as they were British.
Yeah,
well, I will say this is that to springboard off of the writing that you were talking about, it's that, and everybody, I guess, who wants to be in the industry, I mean, you should know, is that a lot of these really successful TV shows, as they progress, if you wrote an episode of Game of Thrones, you can pretty much write your own ticket, and you can leave, and a lot of them do. A lot of them go and they write on their own shows. I mean, they'll write an entire episode of Game of Thrones, and then they'll be given like a pilot or a series, and they'll leave. And that's not because they won't continue to write on Game of Thrones, but, you can have multiple writing jobs at the same time. And so when they do that, it's really hard to keep, it takes a lot of effort to keep the consistency of how the story's told and the emphasis on certain characters the same, because it's completely different writing styles. I mean, you're changing writers all the time. And so you really, like you said, you have to have a lot of faith in your writers to kind of carry it along and adapt what you're saying you want to adapt, and keeping the same level. Like, for instance, like the movie like Gone with the Wind. That movie had 5 directors, and a lot of people don't know that, but the producer of that movie said that it was one of his proudest moments because he was able to get 5 directors who were all divas and ridiculous and had all these ridiculous ideas, and he goes, no, you're going to be consistent, and you're going to do exactly what the last one did, and we're going to get this thing done. And it's going to look the same. I don't want anything different. I don't want any experiments. I want the flow to feel the same from start to finish. So that I want it to be seamless. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that is something that is said. Like, from season to season, even in this new season, it is all pretty seamless. Like, when you look at, like, the writing and the direction, like, it all, from episode 1 to, to now, it still all feels like it's one creator,
Yeah, and, I mean, I will say this. Although I didn't read the books, I can definitely tell, just as a viewer of the show, that the writing hasn't been quite to the level that it was in previous seasons because they don't have anything to base it off of.
Yeah.
And, I mean, some of the characters' writing is really good, but that's also because they're usually backtracking and using things from the books that they didn't get to use in the previous seasons. Because they said that they're doing that with some Jaime stuff this season, that they're going back and kind of revamping something that in the books they address quite a bit. The same thing with Arya, they're going back and kind of going, yeah, we didn't know where to put this before, but now we have a place for it. And that's why certain chunks of it, you're like, that was a really good scene. Like, I really felt it there. And that's because usually George R.R. Martin wrote that, and then they finally got a chance to adapt it at an appropriate time for their purposes.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Hodor thing. Sorry, spoilers. That was a George R.R. Martin, we all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Hold the door. That's a George R.R. Martin note.
Scene.
Yeah. And, you can see the difference, because look at the reaction that had. I mean, this guy, when he catches a hold of that baseball, it goes out of the park, And when it's left up to just the other writers, it doesn't quite hold a candle to his original storytelling.
I would definitely agree with that. I feel like a large part of the reason the show is so good is because, I mean, George R. R. Martin had this entire world in his freaking head. Like, that's insane.
For like 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and so much, like, you know, you were talking, like, so many of, like, the different places the story takes place, like the Wall or King's Landing or Bravos or the Riverlands or, you know, all the Essos and, like, each one of these places could be, like, a whole, like, story, like, show or whatever to itself. And we get kind of a mix of all these different things, and it's this huge, like, scope for, like, us as the audience to be like, this whole world, you know, in a way that maybe, I mean, I don't think, like, the Lord of the Rings or anything like that ever really achieved with me anyway.
No, because with, like, Lord of the Rings, I was actually, when you were talking about this, I was literally going to jump in on this. The difference between, like, Lord of the Rings versus Game of Thrones. Besides the fact Game of Thrones is a longer series with way more stuff to work with, the key thing is that Lord of the Rings is extremely basic in its story.
Very black and white.
Yeah, it's very black and white. There's not much complexity to it. It's like the heroes are good because they are good, and that is what heroes do. And the villains are all ugly and evil and wear black and have spiky armor. Like, you cannot mix them up. There's like very few moments where that wavers. I mean, even like the guy who's supposed to be pretending to be good, the worm tongue guy. Like, everyone else in Rohan is like normal and British with long hair that's neatly combed, and he's like this like pasty, gross, weird guy in a black coat that's like, and you're like, okay, he's obviously evil. Like, there's no mistaking his evil. He is like, looks like he's like suffering from scurvy over here.
See, like, and that's one thing, like, you see that George R. R. Martin talks about that, and I know exactly kind of what you're referencing, is when he's talking about it, he's like, I really try to stay away from being very Tolkien in my approach, because I like shades of gray. I don't like characters to be universally good or universally bad. And I
mean, there's a character called Gandalf the White who wears all white. You know what I mean?
Well,
case in point right there.
And there's a guy named Sam who shouldn't be in the fucking movie. I was gonna. Because we didn't know what to do.
Hashtag Sam is useless.
You gotta love it when all the other names are like Pippin and Frodo and Gandalf and Sam Waltali of Horn Hill.
That's almost like it's like Gandalf and Legolas and Bert.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, my name's
Bob. And you know what's weird?
Elf.
Is they do it for characters that are supposed to be the odd one. They always give them a normal name, and that's what makes them odd. It's sort of like a Twilight Zone thing, like the episode with the pig face. If everybody has a pig face, but the person who doesn't have a pig face is the odd one out, and everyone thinks they're ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so I think they do that intentionally to just kind of go like, man, he seems out of place. Like, man, he doesn't seem like he really belongs here. You know, because all these people seem like magical and mystical, and like they have some sort of bigger destiny, and then it's like, just, you know, Kyle. Just like, Kyle's in Mordor. You're like,
Kyle. Dork.
Yeah, you're a dork. You don't belong here.
You're not an orc. You're a dork.
You're a dork. I was just trying to think of a basic name.
I really don't know if I want to be a fighting orc. I'm still trying to find myself.
I was thinking.
I know that I would end up being like a demon or something if I was in Lord of the Rings. They'd be like, boo.
Yeah. I'd be one of the just people that got trampled underfoot.
I would get credited as self.
Kyle, no.
Lord
Kyle, you'd be one of the hobbits that stayed home and tried to rob Bilbo's house.
Oh, yeah.
He's been gone for a while. He's dead. Where's that pipe?
It's like, these houses cannot be difficult to break into. Let's dig into it. Like,
from the ceiling.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be a fall drop or tall drop when we get there.
Yeah,
gonna fall about 3.5 feet, and boom.
Okay.
Gandalf's just like, you shall not pass, and this like does one staff poke and it just explodes.
Gandalf home security. Okay, let's get back to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, shit. I'm sorry. Well, I will agree to the fact that Game of Thrones has a lot more gravitas, and the fact that you want to hate certain characters, but then there are parts of them that you really can relate to, and you go, man, that's kind of something that I would do in that situation, or, you know, and they even make you, like, that's the weird thing. People are now more okay with incest because of Game of Thrones. Because
that's a strong statement.
It's a strong statement, but I'm not saying like in real life, but I'm saying seeing it. You're
like
almost you don't have that jarring reaction.
I was about to say, what Gallup polls are you taking, sir?
No, I do a lot of independent research. Okay.
Well, no, it's like the way you said it first. It's like people watch Game of Thrones and they like.
We'll cut that out.
Look at their sister.
No,
I'm leaving it in. But I see what you're saying now. But yeah, in fiction
and seeing it on TV, because here's the thing. I mean, there have been moments where I've openly rooted for Cersei and Jaime to be together because I'm like, you two kind of deserve each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a matter of like, oh, I really want those brothers and sisters in the show to, fuck. Like, I really hope Jon Snow hooks up with Arya.
And you kind of learn
I'm never like that.
How genuine Jaime's feelings are. Like,
yeah, but it's also like...
Show. It's like, you're like, oh, wow, he really does, like...
If you took the brother-sister part out of it,
exactly.
You would be like, man, he really, guy lost a fucking hand and still came back. It's like, man, this guy really wants her. And you're like, man, I kind of wish he would get what he wants, but then you're like, should he?
He pushed Brand out of the tower.
Yeah, and then again, it's also like back then, it's like if someone caught you doing that, it's either my life or his. And he even says, he's like, I had hoped the fall would kill him.
Yeah.
He's like, I never intended to cripple him. I hoped it would kill him.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get caught. And it would have been better had he have died. He just openly says it. And he says it to his mom. Like, he says that to fucking Catelyn Stark. I hoped it would kill him. Like, with his beard and his, all covered in mud. Where did you get this beast of a woman? To Brienne.
That's one of the reasons the show is so great, is Brienne.
I love Brienne. I think she's great.
Brienne's probably one of the most genuinely just chivalrous character in the show.
Selfless, you mean?
No, I meant chivalrous.
Like a true knight.
Like a true knight.
Oh, okay.
In that kind of classic, because that's one of the things of Game of Thrones is that chivalrous, the idea of this chivalrous knight, is it's kind of like what Sansa kind of fantasizes about in the beginning, but and it turns out they're all a bunch of assholes, right? Brienne has been the only one, and she's not even a knight. She wants to be a knight so bad, but no one will ever let her be a knight because she's a woman. But she's the only one that embodies that, classic romanticized version of what a knight should be, and she strives to be that way.
And I think that's going to be a big moment. I feel like, assuming Brienne stays around, which I hope she does.
Yeah.
Because you never know. They could be setting us up for a fall, but assuming that they're not, I would love to see her get knighted.
Yeah, so it'd be nice if she does,
legitimized.
If she at least gets that, because everything else in her life is just shitty. She can't just stop being a knight and go to being Lord's daughter or whatever, because she's everyone makes fun of her there too, because she's completely ridiculous looking in a dress and all this shit's not really her. But then if she does what she feels comfortable with, then she's demonized even more. And so she's just there's nowhere for her to turn, so she just lives with it.
The characters are so well written, though. That's mainly what I'm getting at, is that they're so well written that there are parts of them that you hate, because there are parts of your own personality and other people's personalities that you hate, but there's also parts of them that you can extremely relate to, and you go, you kind of root for the fact that, Jaime gets a gold hand, because you're like, yeah, well, you know what, he's getting on with his fucking life.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I would do that. And you kind of pity him for that, and he tries to do right by a lot of people, although he has this weird, incestuous, fucked up relationship with his sister. And he tries to be good to his kids, even though he doesn't openly acknowledge that they're his kids until like way too late. Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of them are really like alluring. Like, you know, the fact that like Oberyn has this vengeance, because you can see the same these motifs in these characters. Like Oberyn has this revenge, bloodthirst,
like,
and so does Karstark.
Yeah, like Jaime is like redemption.
Yeah,
Like,
Jaime has it. Lord Karstark, Lord of Carhold.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, it's not a wise man who stands between a father and his vengeance. And he's saying that to, like, Catelyn Stark. He's like, I don't give a fuck if you're the queen.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to kill that prick. You know, like...
Well, it's that whole theme of, like, in Game of Thrones, it's that whole theme of vengeance is, like, it's blatantly destructive. And everyone who engages in it for their own, like, vengeance to feel better always ends up worse.
Yeah. And... I mean, that's true, but I think... I'd like to think that in this world, like, that's at some point, vengeance has got to help you. I mean, because we see, like, you know, Arya has vengeance. She has a list. Well, she has a list of people she wants
I would say there's a difference in this between vengeance and, like, justice or retribution.
Well, I guess that's
like, whenever
what I mean,
they do vengeance, it's always, like, destructive and personal. For example, Oberyn. It's not enough that he beats the mountain. The mountain has to say it.
Yeah.
If Oberyn had just... Yeah, it's like if Oberyn had just, like...
Got the job done?
Yeah. Then he
neck.
would still be alive. If the mountain was on the ground dying, he could have just... and finished it. But he had to have that.
You raped her! You murdered her children!
I mean, how different... Because, you know, if that hadn't happened, Oberyn wouldn't have died. We wouldn't have the zombie mountain. We wouldn't have all this fucked up shit going on in Dorne.
Tyrion wouldn't have killed his wouldn't have killed his dad.
Yeah, Tyrion wouldn't have killed his dad. Yeah, all this, it would have been way different.
Yeah, and that's kind of the genius
in a lot of ways.
I mean, yeah, and see that's kind of the genius thing is there's so many things that if just one person would run into this other person, it could solve so much. Or if they just would, like, if Jaime just stopped pursuing Cersei and goes, she's my sister, I should stop while I'm ahead. I lost a hand.
Oh,
then it would have completely snowballed all these other things to not happen.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about the writers and, like, the consistency there, and how that is so important because, like, so much of the show is, like, building off of, like, something happens and then it just builds off of, like, these events have already happened.
Yeah, and because I think that's why you see in some of these episodes, you know how a lot of the times we're like, man, does Brienne love Jaime? But now we're like, does Brienne love Tormund? You know, like, and you know what I mean? Because the writers have since changed, and also now they're not basing it off any books. So they're just kind of making it up as they go, and they go like, wouldn't it be great if two people who are of equal of height
that bugs
hook up
me.
with each other?
I gotta tell you, and I was gonna try and avoid it, but that really bugs me to no end. That they're just like, well, they're both big people, so let's maybe hook them up or something. It's like. That's a completely ridiculous reason.
The only reason that I think it's okay, and hear me out, is that Brienne wants to be known as like a warrior and kind of this loyal like knight and kind of earn her place, and Tormund respects people who are loyal and he respects people who are good fighters. Like that means a lot to him.
Yeah.
And so when he sees someone who comes in and she's big and imposing and is like could take him on. Basically, it's a challenge. You know, like it's sort of like all these other women that he has. He's like their king, so he can kind of just take who he wants.
That's true.
But this is a woman who is completely. This is kind of the.
She don't need no man.
Well, it's sort of like that.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, man, I really actually have to earn this. And it's sort of like his like finding the one. Like, yeah, you know what? I just see something in this one that's different. This is the Jon Snow with, what's her name?
Boobs. I mean,
it starts with a Y.
Oh, Ygritte.
Ygritte. Okay. Yeah. But just like, because when we're watching it, I know that you guys thought the same thing. We go, there's no reason for them to have this relationship.
But it's not something that I know you made me realize. it's not something that maybe that won't make more sense if they expand on it a little bit.
Yeah, and see, it's like they were trying to, and that you can see at moments where they're trying to make sense of it, but also Jon Snow's inexperienced, and this girl is very experienced, and also he kind of represents everything that she was never allowed to be around. They're both kind of rebelling. Like he's rebelling against the Night's Watch temporarily.
She's rebelling against the Wildlings.
She's rebelling against the Wildlings by kind of dating a posh guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and a member of or former member.
Yeah, like dating the enemy or whatever.
Yeah.
It's forbidden love.
Yeah, I mean, it's like crows are basically the only people the Wildlings really hate.
Look, when they got in that cave, I thought they were going to cue the song "Summer Lovin', Having a Blast." I mean, like that's.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I know everything, Ygritte.
You know nothing, Jon.
I walk with the wildlings. I talk with the wildlings. I lay with a wildling girl.
Yeah. So.
Sorry.
So, we've talked a lot about Game of Thrones. I was gonna finish this off with a final thought from each of us about what we would like to see in the future of the Game of Thrones television show, whether it be specific plot points or just like general ideas.
So more books is not a acceptable answer.
No.
Not a problem.
So, Kyle, do you want to go first?
Okay. Well, something I would like to see in the show. I would like to see more main characters die in surprising ways, in ways that I don't necessarily like when I'm watching it. It's something I really liked from the show. For instance, I kind of didn't want Jon Snow to come back because I kind of I like the idea that these characters die and they don't come back, and good guys also die for not good reasons, and life still kind of moves on. And I was also kind of hoping that even if they did bring him back, maybe like he would be evil or something. But anyways, I'm hoping for more twists that are not, because so far a lot of the twists have been like not really that, it doesn't like upset you as much as something like the Red Wedding did. So I'm hoping for more like it was negative twists or something, but twists that affect our more favorite characters in negative ways.
Anti-twists.
Yeah.
So, David?
Well, I kind of agree with that. I think they're they've sort of figured out that people are, anticipating some horrific deaths, and so I think they're trying to avoid it so that when they finally do it, people really don't see it coming. Like they kind of just are mixing it up. So, throw in a bunch of right jabs, and then eventually they'll hit you with a left one, out of nowhere. But personally, I'd like to see a lot more. I'm so interested and fascinated by Bran, just because as a person who didn't read the books, but has heard people talk a lot about the books and seen a lot of theories about them, and just his powers are extremely interesting. And the fact that, he might be able to affect the past, we're not really sure. Is it kind of this Back to the Future loop or alternate timeline? Has he fucked up the past? Or is he going to fuck up the past? And that's why things are fucked up now, because the future him already fucked it up, and he has to then figure out if he can fix it, or is he destined to just screw up, and that's kind of why we're here where we are. I don't know. He's extremely fascinating to me because he's got like multiple powers, and now after seeing Bloodraven kind of download himself into Bran, it'll be interesting to see what all Bloodraven could do. Coming out through Bran, and also if it'll be different considering he was so old and Bran's so young. Will he be able to then use it in different ways? So that I definitely want this faceless crap to stop. It's I get it.
David, I can't help that I don't have a face.
Yes, you can. You have a Sharpie, don't you? But the only thing that I liked that Jagan Nagar said recently was when I was just like, she seems like a good person. He goes, well, does death only come for the evil, does it not also come for the decent? You know, like he said something like basically kind of hinting that more fucked up shit like might happen, Kyle, that you were wanting. Sort of just like, yeah, you know, I might have to kill you. That's kind of what I thought. You seem like a decent person, but I'm gonna kill you.
The Faceless Men are kind of like weird and fucked up and shit, so that would be interesting to kind of wrap this up, but in a like very startling way.
Yeah, and also I want something maybe with the Faceless Men to, if they don't stop it and they want to keep going, do something interesting where you make like Sirio Farrell is like the leader of the Faceless Men, to where it's like he's actually been kind of monitoring her from a distance. Like he's not Jaganagar. I don't want to think that. He's not the waif. He's just monitoring all that stuff this whole time and just waiting to intercede and go, you dead girl, you know, or whatever, just off in the corner with a wooden stick.
That's how he kills her. You dead girl.
You know, if you poke people, the liquid comes out. Okay. But, anyways, just more, like Kyle said, kind of more deaths or more in-depth analysis of the characters we already have and stop introducing new ones that really don't have any point, like Lady Crane. What the fuck? Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I kind of just got bored with myself.
Yeah. So for me, the one thing I would want as far as like the kind of direction of this story, and this is a bit biased for a bias that both these guys know.
I forgot about it.
Oh, here we go.
I'm not gonna go that in depth to it. Okay.
It took me. I was a little bit of a delayed reaction there,
Me
but I
too.
realized what he's about to start talking about.
Go ahead.
So these guys know this. I don't like Daenerys.
What?
I don't like the character. I think in the books she's awful, and I think in the show it's pretentious and boring. Because she's held up as this very like Christ-like figure who can do no wrong, and that we should just be...
Hey, she can do no wrong. Dracarys!
She does not do no wrong. A large part of the reason you hate her is because she does so much wrong. I don't think she's in any way touted as someone who can do no wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, in the show it's always like, oh, well, yeah, she killed people needlessly, but, oh, she's good, guys. She's still good. Look, she's still, freeing the slaves. She got all the Dothraki, even though they, are pillagers and kill lots and lots of people. But no, they're going to follow her to Westeros and behave themselves.
And
no.
Just quickly, I think that's what they're going to be doing, though, because even, Dario Naharis or whatever's told her is look, you're not good with people, but you're a good conqueror.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, what I want is by the time this show ends, I want Daenerys to be evil.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is, I think that is a way more interesting ending to this, in that, the person who has been touted as the savior, who's going to have the dragons that will stop the White Walkers and bring an end to it and unite Westeros, blah, 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 blah. I think it's more interesting is what if this is where we start seeing her make more drastic turns and she becomes the reflection of the Targaryen dynasty, which is all fighting and betrayal based entirely on dragons, because with the Targaryens, when they didn't have dragons, that's why
they died off.
That's why everyone was willing to go to war with them and kill the fuck out of them, was because they were actually terrible rulers, with the exception of a couple of them, and they were tyrants, but they had dragons or dragonfire, and everyone wasn't willing to make that this huge sacrifice that they may not win. And I think this is the thing, is that she's already turning into that. Mm-hmm. The fact that she's getting the Dothraki, who are not, they're not like an army that's going to bring peace to a place. They destroy things. That's the whole purpose of their being.
Yeah.
So I think if they just if the show, I think it's just going to be really kind of boring and lame if the Dothraki are now good guys, even though they've never been. And, the dragons, no one's going to be opposed to that, and the dragons are just going to be okay, and they're going to save everyone. And that Daenerys is just going to come to Westeros, and everyone's going to love her, and she's just going to, make shit work.
What I would honestly love, I don't even know who exactly I would want to see do this, but I would love to see something where basically she tries to come to Westeros. She lands, and rather than setting it on fire or something immediately, she tries to have a conversation, and then somehow she gets captured and taken away, right? Kind of put in the black cells of the Red Keep, right? And then after a while, they bring her out, and the king or whoever, the queen, whoever's sitting on the throne, just has a huge fucking dragon skull sitting there, like they just took fucking Drogon and did exactly the same thing that happened in the past and put it in the hall where the last one was, right next to the fucking Iron Throne. And we're like, deal with that shit. You know what I mean? That's what you are. That's what your whole legacy was. You're the mother of dragons. Well, your dragons are dead.
Yeah, well, because
I would love to see her burst into tears and just, have everything stripped from her.
Well, I mean,
I can't...
It's dark, but I think it's good.
Well, it's not that it's dark. It's just I don't really see all the hate towards Daenerys because
I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying for the writing, it's more interesting.
I guess maybe it's just bad that it's Alex fucking hate her, and it's wouldn't it be cool if she cried?
Well, no, I mean it's because it's hard. I don't want to say I completely disagree because there are some things where I think she's a little bit weaker in the show compared to some of the other characters, but that's only because she's I guess even in the book she's kind of an idiot kid, and they're only playing her age up, but not her intelligence. She's still kind of stupid.
I think that most of the we kind of talked about a lot of the characters in the show, she has good and bad qualities.
Yes.
For sure. And Alec, I think to zero in, it's not that you don't like, really from what you said, it doesn't seem like you hate Daenerys so much as that you hate people who like Daenerys. Because I think the only people who think Daenerys is going to fly in and save the world are those hardcore Daenerys fans. Because all the hardcore Jon Snow fans say the exact same shit.
Which is why it's called A Song of Ice and Fire.
I love that.
Yeah.
Alex, we're not ending it right there, you fuck. No one defends Daenerys in my sound booth.
No, I mean, my final note on this is that the reason also I don't think Daenerys should end as a good guy is because in Game of Thrones, one of the big story motifs is that we have learned time and time again that magic shit ain't to be trusted. Mm-hmm. And dragons are the most magical of magical bullshit. And every time we've seen magic, it's always got a high cost for a moderate amount of reward. And it's always fucks shit up in the end. And I think, I just don't it's just too easy to just have her swoop in and save the day.
Once again, I really don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen.
I think, here's what I honestly would think, is that if they, how she, can't get burned, right? Or, at least that's what they've kind of established somewhat. Here's what I think. I think if they go this way, it's going to be really cool. Where the dragons turn against her, they favor more people like Bran and Tyrion. Because Tyrion has an affinity for dragons. They obviously like him. He freed them. So they have love for their friends and hatred for their enemies. And since they have all these bad experiences, she's going to do something to piss these dragons off. And only with their special magic that they are kind of comprised of, their fire is the thing that can burn her. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you.
That is the only flame that can actually do it. It's sort of only Valyrian steel can cut down a White Walker. Or only, magic can bring down the wall. Mm-hmm. It's only magic can kill, Daenerys in that form, in fire, So I think if they do that, that would be very interesting. Because they talk about, Bloodraven even says that, Bran, you're not going to walk ever again, but you'll fly. And so I'm thinking that he's going to warg, or at least be able to get inside the mind and calm a dragon to where he can then ride it. and they'll implement something that Tyrion had made him when he was younger, that saddle for a horse, and put it on the back of this dragon.
Yep.
But anyways, I agree with you though. I think Daenerys she's got more negative qualities than positive. And her story could definitely be interesting. But right now, it just kind of seems like a young girl always getting her way.
Yep.
And that isn't nearly as compelling. So
Hodor, King of Westeros.
She rarely gets her way, but I don't really want to get back into this. So
Hodor,
she really
King of
does rarely
Westeros.
get her way. Husband dies. Most of her tribe's people dies. She takes a couple cities, but then that all goes to shit. She finally gets to ride a dragon, but it drops her off in the middle of nowhere. How much of it actually goes her way?
Well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's poor phrasing. But I guess
it's her story's not very. It's kind of boring right now, and that I will agree with.
Okay,
absolutely,
fair enough. I think we can all agree on that.
I really liked the ice when you said that. That's why it's called ice, and that was a good ending. You should just say it again.
Yeah. Well, people. Well, I want to go. We'll cut that part out.
So that will do it for us here at BrownCast Ultra. Thanks for listening. So, David, you want to selflessly plug yourself before we go?
Sure. Hey, everybody. It's David Grayson one more time. And I have my own YouTube channel called The Walking David, where I try to do a lot of Walking Dead reviews, and I put out fan videos to synced with music, and I also do a lot of impressions. So I'll be keeping you posted. So subscribe to The Walking David on YouTube.
Yeah, go over and check that out, especially those impressions. For sure.
And if you haven't subscribed to BrownCast Ultra, do it immediately at this moment. That was a command, not a suggestion. And
even if you like Daenerys, you can subscribe.
You can subscribe if you like anyone. Even if you like Ramsay Bolton, I mean, we'll still take you.
Man, woman, pizzas, whatever you like.
A Song of Ice and Fire.